My mother-in-law, Linda, asked me to drive her to the district center. I immediately realized that it was urgent and quickly packed my things. I didn't say anything to my wife. She was used to me leaving unexpectedly, even in the middle of the night. She wouldn't have noticed, and I didn't know what Linda needed, but the call was urgent. I felt a mixture of curiosity and anxiety, wondering what kind of situation Linda was in. We agreed that I would pick her up and she would pay for the gas. Linda was already waiting, and I got in the car, ready to hit the road. She sat in the back seat, and we talked to pass the time. The drive took about an hour each way. Linda talked about family news, brought me up to speed on distant relatives, and we laughed at some of the gossip. It was easy and comfortable, and I found myself enjoying her company more than I expected. We made a quick stop at a gas station for coffee. I handed her a cardboard cup of coffee as she sat in the back seat. She thanked me, and we touched down. The car jerked slightly when we hit a pothole, and I apologized, but she only laughed. "Turn around for a minute," Linda said. "I need to change my sweater." I reply, "Why should I turn away?" "You're sitting behind me." She laughed. "Then just don't look in the mirror." I tried not to look, but my gaze kept reaching for the rearview mirror. Even with my sunglasses, I could catch her reflection. My neck stiffened from trying to keep my head straight, but curiosity took over. Linda struggled with her sweater, tangled in her hair, and finally asked me for help. She looked worried, and there was something in the way she looked at me that made my pulse race. I stopped the car, and I slid into the back seat. My hands were shaking as I helped her in, and Linda could tell where my attention was. One thing led to another, and before I knew it, we were in a moment of joy in the cramped interior of the car. We made it, and we were both breathing heavily, her face flushed. I felt a mixture of elation and guilt, but neither of us said anything about it. After that, we continued our trip to the neighborhood center, finished what she needed to do, and headed back. The atmosphere between us had changed. It was charged, electric, and I couldn't stop thinking about what had just happened. On the way home, I bought some scones and more coffee. Linda smiled slyly as I handed her the coffee. She didn't spill it on herself this time, but she still looked at me with the same knowing look. We stopped again, and it happened again, faster this time, but just as intense. Linda was a fiery woman, and I couldn't resist. It was as if we had opened a door that couldn't be closed, and every time we looked at each other, the tension was palpable. We were drawn to each other, and the secrecy only intensified our desire. I drove her to the house and then headed home. My wife, Jennifer, was in the kitchen cooking something delicious. I walked over and kissed her shoulder and complimented her on the delicious smell. Jennifer was always a good hostess, keeping the house in order and cooking amazing meals. She was wonderful in every way, and I knew I was lucky not only with her, but now apparently with Linda as well. Looking at Jennifer, I felt a prick of guilt, but pushed it aside. She had no clue about anything, and I intended to keep it that way. The day ended as usual. We ate, watched TV, and went to bed. Despite everything that had happened earlier, I still had energy left for Jennifer. I felt a strange sense of power, like I was living a double life, and it excited me. The next morning, she left for work, and I waited for calls from clients. Nothing much was happening until Linda called again. "Good morning, Zach," she said cheerfully. I answered, trying to sound serious. "I'm listening. How are you keeping up today?" she asked. For you, Linda. I always have time, I reply. She laughed and asked if I could give her a ride again. She mentioned that she hadn't gotten all the paperwork the day before. I quickly got dressed, put on fresh clothes, and headed outside. I couldn't deny the excitement I was feeling. My heart was racing, and I knew exactly why. When I picked her up, I couldn't help myself. We stopped halfway and continued on from where we had left off the day before. Linda was ready, this time wearing something more comfortable, no buttons or hooks. A mischievous glint appeared in her eyes, and I realized we were both in too deep to stop. We walked back, said our goodbyes, and I headed home. Jennifer was already at the stove, making stuffed cabbage. I made myself comfortable, and we went on with our lives as if nothing had happened. I couldn't help but marvel at how easily we slipped back into our roles: husband, wife, mother-in-law. Linda and I got into a routine. At least once a week, we found an excuse to go out. It became our little secret, something that added a spark to my otherwise predictable life. The thrill of secret trips, the danger of getting caught, all made me feel more alert than I had in years. One afternoon, Linda called me again, her voice playful. Zach, I think I left something in your car yesterday. Do you mind if we go for another ride? I giggle, knowing exactly what she meant. Sure, Linda. Where to this time? She hesitated for a moment before answering. Maybe somewhere far away? I hear there's a beautiful scenic spot about 2 hours from here. We could spend the whole day there. I agreed, feeling a familiar excitement rising in me. We drove to the place, and the scenery was breathtaking, but neither of us were really into the view. We parked in a secluded spot and gave in to temptation again. The feeling was almost surreal. We were in nature. The wind was rustling in the trees, and we were immersed in our own world. Afterward, we sat in silence, sipping the coffee I had brought with me. Linda looked up at me, and her expression softened. You know, Zach, this is crazy, but I haven't felt this alive in a long time. I nodded, knowing exactly what she meant. There was something intoxicating about the secrecy, the stolen moments, the adrenaline rush. It was dangerous, but that was the beauty of it. We both knew it couldn't last forever, but for now, it was enough for us to live in the moment, savoring every opportunity. Eventually, we made it back, and I dropped her off at her house. She gave me a long look before getting out of the car, and I followed her until she disappeared inside. As I drove home, my mind was spinning with thoughts of Linda and Jennifer, the two women who now occupied my life in such different ways. Jennifer was already back at the stove, cooking something, filling the house with a pleasant aroma. I kissed her on the cheek, and we continued our evening as if nothing had changed. Linda and I continued our secret trips, each one bolder than the last. We found new places to stop, new reasons to be alone together. It was risky, and we both knew the possible consequences, but neither of us could bring ourselves to stop. It became a part of our lives, a secret thread woven into the fabric of our everyday lives. And as long as we could hide it, we were determined to keep at it.